Do you want me up here? I suppose you're all wondering why I've called you here today. Yeah, it's all recorded. It's all. Oh. Good morning. My name is Dave Harms, and I'm very pleased to welcome you on behalf of Arnold Young and John Hickey and Bruce Johnson to the Clarion International Developers Conference for 2017. So let's give a hand to Arnold and John and Bruce. We actually have, it's a terrific turnout here, and we also have, I think, the largest ever turnout for the online audience. All of the recordings are available not just for the online attendees, but for you as well at the CIDC 2017 site. And for the people who are online, they're actually probably going to see this a little more clearly than some of you at the back. So just keep in mind that if you're not seeing everything as well as you would like, you always do have access to those recordings. We ask that you not stream them during the conference, but certainly after. And this was the largest screen that was available, so bear with us, and thank you for your patience with that. The Wi-Fi. A word about the Wi-Fi before we get started. We have a limited number of connections, so please, if you have more than one device, we ask that you only use one device at a time. If for any reason you have to log in with a second device, please log out when you're done to free up that connection. So we don't want to get to that situation where suddenly we're at the limit and someone who does need to log in can't. So thank you for your cooperation with that. And I think with that, we'll get started. I'm also very pleased to welcome, we're very pleased to have SoftVelocity here, Bob Zaunere and Diego Borochovich. And Bob has been the president and CEO of SoftVelocity now for 18 years, I believe. So he's starting to get used to the routine, and he's going to be speaking to us first. So please welcome Bob.
Okay, thanks. Sorry for the delay. Welcome to everybody here and everybody online. Today, what I'm going to be talking about is what we're doing in products, what we are developing, and just general status, because I think that's what everybody really wants to hear about. So let's get started. Clarion 10. Clarion 10 has proven to be very stable. I hope everybody here is already running it and owns it. Anybody not run Clarion 10? Okay, good. We have a new build coming out. It'll be out either this week or early next week. It's a pretty significant build. There's over 150 fixes and changes and features. I made a note of a couple of them because I saw threads in the news group where people who were using TopScan were pretty upset that they could not paste their password into the owner field. So we changed that. I'll show you a demonstration of it. Diego actually did it. Looks pretty good. And something you guys could add to your own applications. We also added the ability to export to JSON from TopScan. So TopScan continues to evolve. It handles Clarion DAT files now as well as TopSpeed files. It's a lot better export capability than it used to. And hopefully some people will be happy about the password feature. We've also updated the Clarion CL command line tool, so you can automatically upgrade batches of apps and DCTs without having to manually hit OK, OK for every time the DCT has to get converted. Another new option that I'll make note of is the ability to attach the Clarion debugger to a running process. So there's a new menu option in the IDE. So if you've got your Clarion program out there running and you've compiled it with debug and something, you know, a point where it's about to go wrong, you can attach the debugger to that running process and break into it and check and see what's going on. I thought I'd show the README. We're using the Open Office on Diego's machine, and it won't actually open it. Well, I'll just do TopScan first. So this is the new feature of TopScan. So normally you get this, but if you toggle this little button over here, you get to do that, and you can paste away. So small feature, but people really seemed pretty upset when they couldn't do that, so we added that. I won't open the README then. The README is huge. I was going to go through a few points. Maybe we'll do it at the end. Update on H5. I don't know how many people here are using it, but the H5 bootstrap combination is code complete, except for any bug fixes, of course. It probably is the simplest path you'll find to be able to deploy your app like instantly to a mobile device or a tablet. It does reuse all of your business logic, so you're not writing any new code in JavaScript or anything like that. And you can really customize the look and feel very easily, even if you don't know CSS. There's so many free themes out there for Bootstrap that you can just literally drop one in, change one line of code in the include file that we use, a separate CSS file, and you can just swap a theme out just like that. And the other thing worth noting, you can see it in some of the videos and demo apps we have up on GitHub. But if you learn just a little bit of JS, even if it's just enough to just copy and paste a few lines of code, you can add all types of things from capturing handwritten signatures to doing graphing, and I don't know, the list goes on. The JavaScript ecosystem is huge. It's every day there's some new project comes out, or one gets duplicated and gets even better than the last one. And so there's just a ton of things you can open up your app to do. Diego will be going over the DH5 right after this session to start with. And so anyone who hasn't seen it will get a feel for what it's about. Clarion.net 4, we've been using it, and you all have actually, because it's a part of the IDE since the first release of C10. We've had it out to some users who requested it to upgrade their 2.x.net programs, and they've had it in production now for just about a year as well. We're adding one new feature to this next release, which is the ability to generate C# code with the exact same functionality as the Clarion code. It'll go into a separate folder. And the reason we're doing this is to provide the option for people who want to use the Windows Presentation Foundation, the WPF designer, instead of our WinForm designer. And we have no new templates for it for now. Let's move on to Clarion 11. Clarion 11 is literally the biggest change to the runtime library, and to a small extent to the compiler as well, since the transition from Clarion for DOS to Clarion for Windows. So whereas a lot of people think wow, this is just Unicode that you're talking about, it is so much more than that. An analogy would be if you bought a beautiful mansion and you said, you know what, I'm ripping all the plumbing out and I'm going to put in brand new everything. It's pretty much what we did. Most of the changes are internal. They're not flashy IDE things. This is support for Unicode strings, of course, integrated support for 64-bit integers, And another big one, this is just to name a few because I will be going over this all in detail on Friday. Transitioning to EMF format for reports. I don't know how I duplicated that, sorry. Anyways, this is an important point I want to make, that the new classes within the RTL combine with the work in the scanner, the compiler, the linker, and the drivers as well. They're the basis for us evolving Clarion for years ahead. A lot of the things we wanted to do were slowed down by the fact that we always maintained compatibility for so long, since the first version of Windows. And Windows itself changes quite a bit, as you know. And we've had to patch things here and there and make workarounds for things that Microsoft changed. So with this new, with what we've done now, we've paved the road for many years ahead. Like I said, Friday I'll go deep into the details of C11. I'll go into the data types, all the things that changed and how new functionality you'll have. So, where do we go next after Clarion 11? That's where we need your feedback. I know everybody wants Clarion Win64, and I don't know how that got truncated, but what it started to say is the road to Win64 becomes easier if we don't drag along the ICM database driver support. So that's something we need some feedback on. Well, there's the full sentence there. There's another option, is if we created a Windows structure to WPF converter, then you have 64-bit right now available using Clarion.net. So that's an option. Again, we need feedback from you. And the general thing that we really need is to find out what you need for your market and what we can do to make your products better, so thereby making our product better as well. We consider what we do a partnership, and we depend on that feedback. So at the end of this session, I'll be asking you for that. And I think we'll probably put up a website where you can go and just type away to your heart's content. Okay, 2 years ago, I talked about what we were going to do for mobile development. These things have changed the world for a long time now, and we haven't really had a path for Clarion developers to get into that world. So we've been testing since the last 2 years a number of approaches that you can use to do that with these goals in mind. It had to be scalable to any number of users. We had to be able to reuse the skills you already have from working in the unique generator template environment. You had to be able to access your database from any client, whether it's one that we generate or just one that you had someone else, you pay someone to write, or you write yourself, web app or mobile. And the critical part was it had to deliver real-time data updates from both client side and the back office. So that any changes in the back office are immediately reflected in a connected client, and the reverse is true as well. So as I said, over the last several years, we've tested so many different ways to achieve that. And one of the problems that we've found is that there are just too many options to choose from. There's a staggering amount of ways that people try to sell you to say, this is the way you should do mobile development. This is the best path. So a couple of the ones we looked at, you could opt for iOS using native code. It means you have to learn either Objective-C or Swift. You also have to learn the Xcode IDE, and then you either have to buy a Mac or rent a cloud Mac to do your development work. To develop for Android, you have two choices for languages. You have Java or their Kotlin, which is newer. Then you have to either learn Android Studio, or, as many people do who develop for Android, just use one of the many editors out there with the plugins for language support. You do get the ability to develop on any of the platforms, Linux, Windows, or Mac. Another option that is popular is to use the hybrid mobile app. where you basically run a little snippet of native code that presents a web view, and inside that web view, you execute JavaScript code, which builds the whole UI. And you can get a really nice looking UI that way. HTML5 has some great features. But you can never achieve a native look and feel. And you will almost guaranteed run into performance issues. So we came out, after looking at all those things, we come up with a few common things about all those approaches. That you either have to learn a platform-specific language, or two, if you want to develop for both platforms, or you have to learn a framework and all its tools, like Ionic or Cordova, or many of the offshoots that create hybrid mobile apps. And in either case, you have to write a lot of code. That's what the characteristics of those environments are. What we found and we've decided to work with is called React Native. It is evolution of the original React, which was developed for web apps strictly. It's a JavaScript code library. It was developed jointly with Facebook and Instagram, though I think Facebook owns it outright now. It's open source and it's free. And you don't actually build a mobile web app. You build a real mobile app that uses real widgets and controls from the native platform. And the only difference is you put the blocks together using JavaScript and React. So you end up with literally an app that looks and feels and performs just as good as if you had written it in a platform language like Objective-C or Java. But you do not have to learn both languages, and you just use JavaScript for both platforms. So some of the benefits, just to note a few to talk about. Again, as I said, you get native platform widgets. Performance is almost identical as if you had written it in native platform code. You can share the vast majority of your code between the two platforms, but at the same time, you can do platform-specific things very easily without much effort. You can conditionally show different controls based on whether it's iOS or Android. You can still use all of the JavaScript ecosystem. And in the near future, you'll be able to take the code that, well, you develop, but we generate and you customize, and you'll be able to also deploy it on a web server. So you'd be able to create mobile clients as well as just more general web apps. I don't know how many people have ever looked into that UWP, the Universal Windows Platform, but another advantage of taking the React route is that Microsoft has put together an extension to React Native that allows you to take your React code and actually create programs that will run under UWP. And they run on all Win 10 devices, from tablets to the Xbox, HoloLens, and anything Microsoft puts Windows 10 in will run an app developed for the UWP platform. One of the things that we liked about React Native is it's component-based. So you build your customized little components, and a component can be something as simple as a button with certain behavior or a list with a certain behavior. And once you build that, it's reusable across all of your apps. We're currently developing some components where we're trying to reflect the typical Clarion developer's expectations on behavior. An example right there is a customized flat list that we're working on. It's currently running in, the picture shows it running in an Android emulator. If it were to run on iOS, it would look almost identical, just the icons on the right-hand column. Apple typically uses a different style, and we've got conditional code for that. In case you haven't heard of React Native, which there's so many options, it's quite likely you hadn't heard of it. It's used by a lot of big companies, as well as thousands of small shops and solo developers. So it's nothing new. I think the first release of it was 2014, I believe. It's been around, and as it's being developed more and more, Facebook is putting a lot of money into it. More and more companies are saying, yeah, this is the way to go, because we don't have to write the same code twice in 2 different languages. Performance is almost identical. So it's a win-win for keeping costs down. But even if we were to generate you this great, React Native client, what about the database? How do we synchronize data between the Clarion back office and the mobile clients? That's the thing that would either make or break the whole approach we have. And the answer is the Clarion REST server. This will be a server that serves up JSON and accepts JSON requests for data and updates. It sits in between the mobile or the web clients and your database. It updates in real time. So the back office makes a change. The client requests data that includes that set of data. It's instant, and the reverse is true as well. Now, Diego's going to be going over the REST server in detail on Friday and actually showing it to you. I'm just going to give you the general overview of it. As I said, the data updates are real time. What I didn't say is it's 100% template driven. So all the skills that you have already achieved by knowing how to build, complex browsers and views and all of that, it reflected back in this custom REST server that you can create without writing a line of code. So you do reuse all your skills. Of course, there are embed points, so you're free to put as much of your own code in there as you need it. It does support secure connections, HTTPS, so you can feel safe in exposing that server. And I think that's it. I wanted to reserve some time for questions and answer them to the best of my ability, and to take any feedback on what you guys need for future development.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
We will have a few minutes for questions here, but of course there'll be more time for questions, throughout the conference, but also on Friday we'll have a session as well, right? So
Yep.
be able to do that. Does anybody have any questions right now? Or a question?
Hey, Bob. A lot of new stuff in Clarion that I found very interesting, but you don't know about it. And so what I would suggest is an export of the RoboHelp to a wiki website, give some people access, and new stuff that's found can be added by those that have access to it. Samples can be added. You'll see that for free Pascal. And that's something really lacking, is just not knowing there's
What's
an
available. Yeah. I agree 100%. In fact, I had thought about trying to get that done before the conference, something to that effect. I'll talk to you about it afterwards if you've already seen it done, because I like the idea a lot.
Okay, anyone else? Greg. And yes, everybody, you do have to wait for the mic to come to you, because we need the people online to hear what you're saying.
You said that there were no templates at the moment, no new templates at the moment for .NET.
Correct.
But it won't be released till the end of the year. There's time between at the moment and the end of the year. Are there going to be templates at then?
To delivery dates.
I can't really promise that, because what we're going to be focused on, Greg, for now is getting C11 into beta testing. And as I said, it's a pretty significant change. We think we've done a really great job at maintaining and not breaking anything, but as you know, that's not always, it's easier said than done. But after that, I do have a question back to, well, I won't, because that'll be too much run around for Dave. I'll talk to you afterwards.
Okay, anyone else? One more question? Okay, if not, well, thank you very much, Bob. We look forward to hearing a lot more about these features.
All right, thanks. Thank you.